G'day everybody. Well, all the fun of Ocker's over and it's time to head down to Melbourne, but very, very slowly and via a couple of places I love, Matlock and Woods Point. Come on, High Country, let's go. Well, when you're talking high country, few places say high country quite as much as where we are now, which is Matlock. And it's at the junction of three roads. It's very, very high. It's about 1,200 metres here. You can see there's snow. We're over the snow line. Jamison's that way, Warburton's that way, and Aberfeldy's way back there. Woods Point isn't too far away. And it's funny, you know, because for me, the reason this place says high country so much, apart from the fact it's very high, very cold this time of the year, is the fact that in so many ways, it is the story of the high country. There was mining here back in the 1860s. The place boomed. A couple of pubs, a couple of churches, a school, post office, everything. And then the bushfires came through, whole lot went. Only a couple of houses left. And then it boomed again with another mining setup. And then that got burnt out. And then the logging started. And you can see there's a big traction engine behind us here that was probably used as part of that logging establishment. But then the fires came through again and burnt that out again too. And so by the time of the 1950s, there was very little here. These days, there's a couple of nice picnic tables and a little bit of a toilet shelter rest area place so you can get out of the weather, which is another part of the high country, the weather. You never know what it's going to do. And there's a few huts, private huts and little holiday places around here too. But the original old Matlock, all gone. And wherever you go, there's historic markers. Sites of the odd grave, sites of the old town. Somewhere in here used to be the Matlock footy oval. I'd like to see that. Righto, come to the high country, because this really, even now, is pioneering country. It really is. Just to get through here today has been not a battle, but a goodly effort. In summer, absolutely beautiful, as long as it doesn't rain. Well, after a good look around Matlock, I mean, how could you not have a good look at a place like this? We're off to Woods Point. Woods Point started out as just a shop built by a bloke called Henry Woods, and that was way back in, I don't know, 1862, something like that. And it was built basically to service all the gold mining around here. And there's little indications of gold mining wherever you look. But it's Woods Point itself that really it's become a focus for four-wheel driving, for trail bike riders, because it's one of the few towns that can only be accessed by dirt roads. It's surrounded by dirt roads, and it's also the headwaters of the Goulburn River. Now, eventually, the Goulburn becomes the Murray. So you could say that you're right up at the headlands of Australia's greatest river. This is a gold dredge, and it's handmade, and it's not dissimilar to one me and my brother had in the early 80s. Ours was more like a toilet door floating on a couple of tractor tubes. This has got proper pontoons and it's got the big 6-inch sucker. And the whole idea was you just literally suck the dirt off the bottom of the creek or out of the sides of the banks and run it through the rivulet here, the trays, and sluice it. Amazing way to find gold. And you could make good money in the day with these things. I'll bet you this one made a few quid. I can see it being used back here. And it's funny because even the styles of the clothing, you know, that's what we used to look like, that's what we used to do. Probably in our case we had more hair. Woods Point, it's just full of history. Come and have a look yourself. Oh. We're just out the back of the museum, and Des and Barbara, who run the museum, they live right next door, and this is Des's shed. And in the 30-something years they've been here, I think he's collected everything in the district. It's just absolutely awesome. And he and Barb built the walking tracks and bricked up, rocked up this creek out the back. It's just an amazing lifetime of doing things, and all to preserve the history of Woods Point. So you can come and have a look. Wow. Hey, come and have a look at this. This is fantastic. Down through the old gate, wherever you look. You know, the tin came from the old Morningstar mine. The rocks came from all around here. There's a chaff cutter. I don't know what that is. It looks like some sort of axle, obviously. I don't know what that would have been on. Probably a log jinker, you know, something to use to drag logs out of the forest here. See the banks? It's all rock lined, the whole thing. Des said there was a flood here one year, so they just decided to line it all with rock. And look at this shelter. It's all round timber, the whole thing, except for a couple of square bits. But even these have been hand hewed, you know? It's amazing. It's an old wagon wheel in there. There's a table. This is amazing. Look, it's just sitting here. This is an original old timber windlass. By the look of it, it's made before welding. So we're talking a century or more ago, just for that. And no surprise, there's an ox yoke right behind it. There's a rack here. I remember these. These were from the old Red Rattlers. Used to be up above the seats in the old trains. There's old furniture stashed away. If you like old stuff, there's everything here, everything. I'm going to keep looking. There could be an old Toyota somewhere. Oh no, Paulie would have found that by now, wouldn't he? Over here, look at that. That is ancient. That's an old whetstone for sharpening picks and knives and possibly even shears, although I don't think they had a lot of sheep up here, so it's probably more likely picks. And over here, that's the bellows. There's two lots. There's another bellows up there from an old blacksmith shop somewhere along the line. Gouging picks, throttle picks, flat picks. Wow, you could just kind of pick up and go and dig a hole somewhere around here, couldn't you? And you could also say it's one of the greatest pubs around too. I can tell you that. It looks like there's no one here, but that's because they're getting ready for a birthday party, and that night we had one of the best parties I've ever had. I won't tell you about that. You ask my mate Paulie. So, rather late the next morning, we pointed on out of town, looking for somewhere to camp. And being an old miner, well, you know, I kind of felt like I had to put a pan in here. I did do that once a long, long time ago, a lot further up this river, and picked up some reasonably good trace. But that was a long time ago, and gold country means there's always another chance. Come along and have a bit of a look, and I'll show you why. Bit of shift, but not too bad. Having seen Milo 2 take on the creek, Rich knew where the deep spot was, so he poked the Jeep just to one little side of it and managed to miss it altogether. But you know what? We've been putting this Grand Cherokee through a little bit of hell lately, and the old trail wing handles it easily. Talking about hell, here's Paulie's old flatbed 2H. It just never misses a beat, the old Paulie truck. It's an awesome bit of gear. And then of course next through, well, it's Flash, isn't it? In the big V8. And I see he's just kicked his number plate up, just on that last creek. That's the price you pay for a few water crossings, isn't it? Never mind, looks like there's quite a few more to go. Makes me wonder how far we'll get with this, to be honest, because the further you go, the more little tributaries there are, the more the water flow is picking up. Okay, when is a river too deep to cross? Well, sometimes it's really obvious. Sometimes it's borderline, like this one. And, oh, lovely deep kathunky sound. Can't see the bottom. If you can't see the bottom, that's always a worry. It's the sheer volume of water that's moving through here that makes me think, no, it's not worth it, because what happens is the vehicle goes in, the water actually pressurises underneath the vehicle because it's travelling so fast, and the vehicle is just as likely to float off down the creek. In this case, probably wouldn't go very far before it fell over because there's so much water going through. But it's marginal. This one is really marginal. Other things to look for, you can see the vegetation around the side of the creek. Normally, it wouldn't have water covering it. It has today, because of all the snow melting everywhere. And how come this one's too hectic and the last one isn't? Well, that's because I can see there's another couple of little subsidiary creeks lead into this. So there's probably twice as much water here as there is just back there, 100 metres. And you could always send your mate in there, you know, go and check it out, Tiger. I'll give you a beer if you do, but he's gonna freeze because it's like 0 minus something or other in there at the moment, I can promise you that. The biggest giveaway for me is there's a set of really big mud tyres here, and they're going backwards and out, and they've turned around. So someone else came down here in a bigger truck than mine and made the decision to turn around. But those are the things you look for. And at the end of the day, if you're really not game enough to walk it, you really shouldn't be driving it. And we're not going to drive it. But that's all right, because down here at Comet Flat, there's beautiful little places you can camp all over the place, and that's what we're going to do. Right here, I reckon. It's lovely. Meanwhile, it's time to set up camp. Nothing beats a good swag on a good bunk and underneath an awning, especially up here in the high country. And I've got my top end kitchen out, Matt's got the fire going. You've got to have a fire, doesn't matter what time of day or night it is up here in the high country. But if you've got the right gear, you can be as comfortable here as you can be anywhere. Some people don't like the idea of winter camping, but you know what? It's got a whole set of values of its own, a whole range of enjoyment, not the least being that you're usually out there all on your own. And of course there's things like this to witness, Mother Nature at her best, the creek really picking up speed and really roaring. You know how you can tell an old miner, don't you? We're always looking at the ground all the time. And even as I walk down here, look at this. Fresh bits of broken quartz. Where you get quartz, you get gold. And there's actually a lovely little lapping bit there right underneath my cameraman that looks awesome. So I might just come to that in a minute. If you're going to do this, get yourself one of these black plastic pans. They're a whole lot kinder on your fingers, but the best thing about them is, if there is any gold in there, and there is some, we have the world's smallest speck here. Probably lucky to get the glint on that. If there's going to be any gold at all, you'll see it on a black background. Tiny little fleck. It's so fine that when I touched it, it disappeared, but it's there. New trees grow up through old ground and they bring stuff up with them, if you're lucky. I've always had gold fever. I can't believe that you can just pick money up off the bottom of the creek. But you know what? I think it's starting to get a bit infectious because everyone wants to have a go. And that's great. I'm just not sure whether we'll be able to pay for the fuel home, But you just never know in Australia, do you? Okay. Trick is to remember where you got it from, just in case you find something.
Richard.
You can imagine, can't you? You know, like 1860, there's a bloke right there doing this, there's another bloke there, there's 35 Chinese fellas on the other side of the creek. The whole creek would have been full of liquid mud. And every now and then the shout of someone going, Eureka! We had one little speck, 4 pans, one little speck, and it came from up the top there. That is pretty meaningless, it really is, because you just should be going flat out all day and then you might make some money. But it's happening, this is where it's at.